1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Friday Show Live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. This is the Friday show. We are live and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got Echoes Everton FC writer Chris Beesley. Chris, just the two of us today. No Gav, no Joe, no Connor, no Tony.
No, at least I'm here, unlike Con.
Yeah, to be fair.
Not phoning it in.
Yeah, working from home because it was sunny. How are things? All good?
Yeah, I see that one. He's a couple like blaming down a couple of tradesmen he had to see or something like that. But yeah, I suppose this is the time of year to get it done, isn't it? I suppose. Any jobs, whatever.
I guess so. Well, he told me that he only came to assess the job and didn't actually do the job, so he's had to come out today again.
Wow. Hope things are all right.
Friday the 13th. Anything bad happened to you?
Yeah, but we can't talk about it on here. Yeah, it has. But yeah, I'm afraid I can't share it with our readers.
Well, it's not your fault, is it?
It wasn't my fault, and that's why I was quite angry about it. But yeah, never mind.
Are you generally a superstitious person, or when you go to games, you have to wear lucky socks, lucky undies?
I don't know about that. About maybe, I don't know. I think there's probably certain things you think, well, I was wearing this when Everton had a good result or something like that. And the problem is, unfortunately, in recent years, there's been a lot of bad results. So, it's not always the case. But yeah, I don't got, if I seen like a ladder, I wouldn't want to walk under it or anything like that.
But yeah. Just keep it safe.
Yeah. So I suppose, I'm sure a lot of people in football are superstitious. There's all kinds of weird stuff, isn't there, with superstitions with football? But yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah, I wouldn't go out my way to sort of to taunt them or anything.
I think in my younger years I was a little bit superstitious, but I've become to realise that wearing certain things doesn't really change anything. I mean, obviously you only have to look at Everton's results over the past 20, 30 years to suggest that. Anything that I do or wear, or anything you do or wear, is not going to change the results, is it?
It's all your fault or something. Yeah, Don't beat yourself up over anything like that. But Friday the 13th. Yeah, let's hope we're all right and we make it through to the end.
We've got Teddy Dactyle off the bat. Ian Croll wearing his Beto undies. He knows I'm a big fan of Beto, so that's what it is.
Okay, yeah. Does Tony Scott not got any?
No, he definitely won't have any on. Yeah. No. Okay, well, today's agenda, we're going to basically take an in-depth look into Everton's squad, the remaining players, and basically the verdict on exactly where David Moyes needs to strengthen. As always, give us a thumbs up and drop us a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Get your questions in as well. We are live, so your support is greatly appreciated. It is worth getting a number of comments, getting the questions in that I can put to Chris for today's pod, because in all fairness, Chris, there's not loads of Everton news going on. I know we're waiting on a couple of things. We've obviously got the fixtures next week, one or two other things that we're kind of waiting on. But yeah, not loads of Everton news knocking around, especially with the transfer window now shut.
Yeah, it's a calm before the storm, isn't it? In many ways, obviously they got the Alcaraz deal done early. I understand, wasn't it? Probably the earliest deal they've done, like 15 years since Beckford came through the door in 2010, I understand. So that one got done early, and then obviously now we're waiting, because obviously there was the announcement this week of the quartet of players who are due to be out of contract, whose futures remain unresolved, waiting on them. But I think the big thing, to be fair, was David Moyes going down to Windsor Castle this week to pick up his OBE, and congratulated David on that, and he was obviously made up that it was Prince William who's the biggest football fan in the royal family who got to hand that over. So that was
fan.
Yeah, that was that. They were talking about that. They were talking about obviously how Everton have been revived since David Moyes came back, and maybe here on the Royal Blue podcast, maybe take a bit of credit for that. With us, obviously speaking to Davey back in September when he had the Goodison Park My Home. He was really sort of ultimate professional, like he always is, and above board. But you could see towards the end of that interview, that the passions were still burning bright for the Blues there. So. Yeah, maybe we played our own little part in all that, and discussing Aston Villa as well, and how well done. And in many ways, it could perhaps be a good example for Everton, and I do discuss that in tomorrow's Royal Blue column. So yeah, look out for that one. So well done, Davey.
Just to go off topic slightly, just with you bringing up Prince William. I only really bringing this up because I had this conversation with my dad the other week. I asked him, why does Prince William support Aston Villa?
Okay.
And he couldn't really answer it, so the only thing I could do was Google it. And basically, I was quite astonished by the answer that he gave, or the answer that has been reported that he gave. He said that he wanted a club that wasn't popular with his friends, i.e. clubs like Manchester United and Chelsea. Bearing in mind, this is probably back in the 80s, isn't it? It says he desired a team that offered more of an emotional roller coaster due to its mid-table status and its rich history. So that is why Prince William supports Aston Villa. Yeah,
fair enough. I think he said, and he didn't want to go for one of the real sort of the fashionable ones, but he stuck through them, hasn't he? To be fair, thick of it. I mean, I don't think there are many in the royal family who are like avid football fans, and he's probably the closest that we've got in this country. And also like the Spanish royalty have been affiliated to Real Madrid for a long time and stuff like that. But I think in this country, to be fair, Williams are the closest we got to a genuine football fan, and obviously he's the president of the FA as well. I just wonder whether, I mean, there were rumours ahead of Goodison's last game, but I just wonder, obviously with the opening of the new stadium, whether he might show his face for that one, because Goodison Park another plug for the book, Spirit of the Blues, finally got the final draft back yesterday, so I'm looking through that, going through all that with a fine-tooth comb. But Goodison Park, the first ground to have a reigning monarch visit it, George V. So wouldn't it be nice if Prince William, President of the FA, showed up at the official opening of Everton's new stadium? I certainly think it's it's an event big enough to justify a royal visit. So
is your book the final draft though, Chris? Because we know that over the past couple of weeks and months it's been changed a number of times. So is it the final one?
Yeah. Barring all the corrections that I'll have to find when I go through it in the coming days. But yeah, there's obviously, like you said, they had to change things like saying the final game at Goodison Park. That's had a bit of a caveat and stuff in it. But yeah, it's all looking good, and that one should be with us by the end of July. So looking forward to that. And many tales, not many of them, aren't just royal stories in there. They're mostly football stories.
Cool. Okay, we'll get into it then, Chris. Obviously, Everton's first team squad. You could say it's been decimated to an extent. I think by my calculations, as it stands, by the end of June, Everton will be left with 14 first team squad players. So that's one goalkeeper, one right back, 3 centre backs, 1 left back, 4 central midfielders.
Okay.
Whether that's as a number 10 or a deeper lying midfielder, 2 wingers and 2 strikers.
Yeah.
We've obviously got 4 players currently in the squad who are set to leave at the end of June, but currently under negotiations. Yeah. So we're hoping to get word on those 4 soon. We know contracts have been offered to Gay, Keane, and negotiations are carrying on with Calvert-Lewin and Coleman. I guess just my first question, which before we go into major detail on it, just how big of a rebuild and how big of a job is it for not just David Moyes now, I guess the recruitment team now?
Yeah, I think significant. It's probably, I know, obviously back in the midst of time, you had when Howard Kendall first came in, he called it a Magnificent Seven when he signed 7 players, and obviously first team squads were a lot smaller back then, 44 years ago. But you could argue it's probably the biggest rebuild Everton probably had at them. I'm trying to think of a time when obviously there was that summer in 2000 when Walter Smith had to more or less rebuild the entire midfield. But yeah, this is probably even bigger than that when we're talking about the obviously the numbers. Concerned, we tried to toss it all up in a panel piece earlier this week, and how many players do Everton actually need? And I thought it was at least 7 or 8 if Michael Keane goes. So yeah, it's significant, isn't it? But hopefully, he can use this as a big positive because let's be honest, these have been probably the toughest times, the most turbulent times in Everton's entire history. The players who have been in there haven't been good enough. This is an opportunity, not quite for a clean slate, as it were, but like I said, major overhaul. The Everton as it has been has not been good enough. So here's a chance actually to rebuild Everton and hopefully build a better Everton.
How many did you say? 8?
7 or 8.
7 or 8.
8 if Keane goes.
You say that. I mean, effectively, the average squad size is 25. Just looking at the average squad sizes over the past, say, 18 months to 2 years, the lowest was like Fulham on 24 and Arsenal on 24. And then you've got the highest, the likes of Chelsea were on 41 players, which is obviously slightly ridiculous. So I don't think we need to get to that many players in the squad. So if you're looking at an average squad size, you're probably looking at like 11 players coming in, aren't you? That is if Gay and Keane, if Gay and Coleman don't sign, because we expect them to sign, don't we? It's just the other two.
So, yeah.
I think you're looking at like 10, 11, really.
Well, maybe it depends on what you say. The squad, do you fill it out with a couple of youngsters or just see how it goes? I mean, it's an interesting one with the 2 backup goalkeepers both going as well, because that's like an area I was thinking with all this rebuild, wouldn't you want to sort of just keep hold of them? Because, all being well, Jordan Pickford can play every week and he just needs somebody as backup. So it's curious, really, that they're going to have a change of personnel in that respect, because you're going to have to bring in at least one person, if not 2, in that respect. So, it's going to be a lot, isn't it? Whatever the final number ends up being, maybe it'll be a case of maybe not quite as much as this season just gone, but having to fill a few spots with loan players again as well. But yeah, it's a massive undertaking, isn't it? I'm just glad that David Moyes is here to oversee it all, because I think he's somebody hopefully we all have a lot of faith in and making those decisions at what is a pivotal time in the club's history. Just
going back to what you were saying about the goalkeeper situation, I couldn't agree more. I think it would have been better off keeping at least one of the 2 second string. But was João Virginia offered a deal? I don't remember seeing any reports that he was offered a deal, but in his quotes upon him leaving the club, he basically just said, listen, I need to play first team football. So do you think maybe conversations were had before a deal was offered and he's like, well, there's no way I'm going to usurp Pickford out of the team, so I just need to leave?
Yeah, I wasn't even sure whether there was some sort of option on the club's part, but they didn't take it up. And like you said, he's probably a bit older than people realise now. He's about 25 now at least, or something like that. So he probably does need to be playing regular football. He's no longer a young up and coming goalkeeper, as it were. He's somebody who should be. I know obviously goalkeepers don't necessarily reach their peak until maybe a bit later than the outfield players, but he certainly can't be just seen as a young prospect anymore. So perhaps it has reached the point where he feels he needs to be playing and dropping down to get those regular minutes, because he's been one of those when he's come in. To be fair, he's done a job. I don't think he's really let anybody down, but he's obviously he's nowhere near the level of Jordan Pickford. So he realised he was never going to sort of usurp Jordan in that respect. So yeah, it's probably created a headache where maybe there didn't need to be one. But like I said, it's going to be big numbers, whatever. And okay, you've got to fill those slots with somebody to sit on the bench, but really the big priority has got to be sort of those who are going to become the main men within the squad. What
you go for then for a second string? You'd almost need the third strings, especially these days. But what would you go for? A young upstart who's very little experience, he knows it's going to be tough to take Jordan Pickford's place. But obviously, we'd have the motivation to do so. Or do you go for an experienced head who's been around the block, who, maybe he hasn't got the full motivation, knowing that he's going to take Jordan Pickford's place. He's just happy to sit on the bench. It's a tough one, isn't it?
That's what. So with the latter, you go for Asmir Begovic, then don't you? Who's just gone again? A good egg, a solid citizen around on the squad, and somebody who's not going to ruffle any feathers, knows the club inside out. So again, it's a curious one that he's been let go after coming back again, obviously after the year at QPR. It'd be interesting to see if they'd have a look at, Harry Tyder is one of the goalkeepers who is still there, and he's had 2 promising loan spells. Spoke to him a year ago. We did really well getting Chesterfield back into the Football League, out the National League. Had a really good experience there, and then he was sent out to Blackpool this season, just gone as well. So he's a local lad, and his long-term aim is to follow in Jordan Pickford's footsteps. So it'd be interesting if he's sort of in and around the thinking, or like you say, whether they do go for like the older one, because it's. I know obviously Carlo Ancelotti brought in Robin Olsen that season when it was behind closed doors in COVID, and he played quite a few times, and he was a Sweden international. He was a bit more than your regular number 2. He was somebody you would be expecting minutes, but all being well, hopefully there's no disastrous injuries to Jordan Pickford on the horizon. Whoever comes in is firmly going to be number 2. So it's one that they need to sort of realise that they're probably not going to be getting many opportunities.
Okay. Bearing in mind that the size of the squad, as mentioned, it is 14 players, and that's not including the likes of Calvert-Lewin, Coleman, Keane and Gay. Where are we strong and where are we weak? Where do we need strengthening?
Okay, well, in terms of strength, I mean, you've mentioned the numbers at least in central midfield, but they probably do need somebody else there in terms of quality, certainly with the core going. I think that probably the strongest area would be that core of the goalkeeper and the 2 centre-backs, albeit they've gone into the summer, the 2 centre-backs injured. James Tarkowski, over 100 consecutive Premier League appearances for Everton, and then he pulls his hammy against Man City. And then obviously Branthwaite's hamstring went in Goodison's final Premier League fixture against Southampton as well. So he went into the summer injured, hence why he wasn't involved at all with England come the end of the season. So hopefully those 2 are both back fit and firing before the competitive football returns. But when they are available, and obviously Jarrad Branthwaite, as Joe has spoken about, is attracting interest again. It is David Moyes' intention to build a team around those 3 players, so hopefully they're there. So that'd be the areas of strength. In terms of areas of weakness or areas that need to be priority, it's got to be the right-hand side of the team for me. The 2 right wingers this season just gone didn't sort of hit the levels at all. Jack Harrison had done all right the year before, and he was unable to replicate that. And again, Jesper Lindstrom, as showing my age there, you could see there's a player in there. You could see he's obviously got quality. He's got ability. He wouldn't have signed for a club like Napoli without that, but just didn't get going for him, did it? Him or Jack. So I think David Moyes was asked about that, ironically, just before they combined for the goal at Wolves. The fact that at the time they didn't, it was March and they didn't have a goal or an assist between them, and he said, to have longevity in my teams, you've got to produce those numbers. So need a big upgrade there on the right-hand side of the pitch. It was interesting, actually. Iliman Ndiaye played for Senegal in that role in the 3-1 win over England, and it makes you wonder, especially given that Everton are well stocked on the left with Dwight McNeil, Alcaraz has signed the permanent deal, and obviously all this speculation around Jack Grealish. Could at some point in the future Iliman Ndiaye be switching over to the right and save Everton quite a lot of money there? But whether it's Ndiaye or whether it's a new player, you definitely need somebody over there on the right to come in. Probably two players really, if you're not going to play Ndiaye in that role. And then right back, I know Jake O'Brien's done really well. Square peg in a round hole or whatever. Going in there in the second half of last year, it was an inspired choice from David Moyes. Nobody expected that. Ashley Young had actually been seen as one of the better, more consistent players for Everton in what had been a very disappointing first half of the season. So it was a real sort of left field move from Moyes to put Jacob Ryan in there. But I think the fact that Nathan Patterson continues to see sort of teammates played out a position ahead of him, and even when Moyes had opportunities to play him towards the end of the season and Everton was safe, he gave him a couple of games. And to be fair, actually Patterson did okay playing left back when he had to go there when Mikalenko was unavailable, and he sort of played within himself and in his unfamiliar role and was steady. Was it the Arsenal game? But yeah, I just fear that all that's gone on for Patterson, I'm not too sure where he goes from here. So yeah, I would continue that theme down the right hand side of the pitch and say a right back as well. That would be the areas most pressing concern for me.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I'll just come on to that, but we've got a comment here from Matt, who says, feel bad for Lindstrom. He did look poor, but he's a 10, not a winger. Do you think he was hampered by playing out of position, or do you think he just wasn't good enough?
Well, I know he can play the 10, and I think he'd done that quite a bit for Eintracht Frankfurt, but, you know, he came in as a winger. That's what we were all told he was going to play, whether it was right or left, mostly the right as a winger. The problem we've had, haven't we? I mean, I think we were discussing this in the office yesterday about all the number 10s Everton have had in recent years, and another one who just sort of likes to float off the front man and sort of no sort of responsibility really. Yeah, I know he can play there, but that he was brought in as a winger, and like I said, he could be easy on the eye at times. He was obviously a player of significant ability, but you know he just wasn't doing enough in the final third, and fortunately for him and Harrison, that was the case last season.
Just sticking with the wingers, it is interesting that the point that you made. I mean, you're right, and I played on the right for Senegal, and by all accounts had a really good game. Yeah. Didn't watch it, seen a couple of clips, and I thought he looked like he did okay. Interestingly though, towards the end of the season when fit, McNeil was played on the right hand side, wasn't he, as kind of an inverted winger, something that he's never really done during his Everton career. And it was interesting to see Moyes change tact a little bit. I know he was never going to play on the left if Ndiaye was playing. Let's face it, I know we've had debates in the past whether McNeil should play on the left or the middle. So the fact that he has played on the right, would you see? Yeah, we are expecting more players to come in, and you're right, we need to strengthen in those positions on the wing. But from the existing players that we've got, would you expect Ndiaye, Alcaraz, McNeil, kind of those three, to maybe alternate positions in the new season? Again, we've mentioned they have looked decent in varied positions.
Yeah, definitely. I think that tactical flexibility is something that you can use to advantage, as we saw obviously Alcaraz in the 10 at Newcastle on the final day, and swapping them around and doing that would actually keep opponents on the toes, and even within games, you know, if you move them around. It was interesting. He seemed to David Moyes tend to favour using McNeil in that inverted winger role. I know he first did it at Chelsea, but then it seemed to be he favoured him more in the home games, and after he scored that goal against Ipswich, and after he was left on the bench at Fulham, and then he came on and did well there. So he shows he can play. I mean, look across the park. Mohamed Salah is the ultimate inverted winger on that right wing. He cuts inside and gets all those goals that way. He's their main man, and he's been doing that for years. So definitely there could be a role going forward for Moyes, especially given how we've seen how well Ndiaye did in his first season at Everton, predominantly on the left. So yeah, it's got to be something to be considered, especially we're saying on the one hand we've got all these options on the left, on the other hand Everton needs to strengthen on the right. So maybe it would be a case of using what they've already got, because I mean they can do it.
So I've just seen a really funny comment which I'll read out later on in the show when we talk about one of the players who's been released. You can probably guess who that player is. But anyway, just sticking with McNeil, we've got two conflicting comments. So Gaspipe says, I see McNeil on the right and I'm hoping he'll come good this season. However, Drach with 2 Ks at the end says, we need a bit of pace, so I'm hoping McNeil isn't played on the right. I guess for all the positives that McNeil has, for all his attributes, the one thing that he is lacking, and the one thing that a winger needs, is pace.
Yeah, it's not too many carveries with still Ryan, is it? Because now you certainly couldn't say Dwight McNeil was carrying any excess weight, but yeah, it's all about the paintbrush, isn't it? As they call it, that wand of a left foot. Yeah, he's not the sort of winger who's bombing up and down and like you say, and relying on that great pace. He's no slouch, but yeah, it's not one of his major attributes. But I suppose if he's cutting inside, and maybe it's a different sort of game anyway. He's not relying on that out and out pace. It's more the trickery and the guile. He certainly left the Ipswich Town keeper bamboozled by that effort when he cuts inside from the right. But yeah, I don't think we're going to change him in that respect. It's more about. I don't think Kevin, to be fair, Everton's greatest left footer of all, Kevin Sheedy, wasn't renowned for his pace. It was other attributes. It's nice when you've got that, when you've got somebody like, I was going to actually say Andrei Konchesky would do that. He would actually, even back in the day, he cut inside and he scored a few on his left, although he was a right-footed player, he could hit them on his left. So yeah, it's not necessarily a new idea, but yeah, it's nice to have that pace. McNeil relies on other attributes.
Moving on then to the left-back situation. I actually find it quite astonishing and just insane that Everton have managed to get through another season unscathed from relegation with only one left-back. I mean, fair play to Mykolenko. I know he's got his critics, me probably being one of them as well. However, even when he's maybe injured or he's not 100% fit, he's managed to play. I know Ashley Young's played on the left-hand side as well, but let's face it, he's not an actual left-back. He's kind of being the utility player. And, Mykolenko he's just quite durable, I guess, is the only way to describe it. Whether he's got the quality to continue on his Everton career to push the club forward is another thing. But what would you be looking at if we were to sign a left back? Would there be someone to be an understudy to Mykolenko, or would it be someone who's literally has to go straight in the team with a lot more quality to Mykolenko?
I think you can get somebody to challenge him. It might be quite difficult to get somebody to usurp him from day one, as it were. Let's not forget, he spent a lot of money on him. It's actually Rafael Benitez, just before getting the sack, spent big money on Mykolenko because he was falling out with Luca Dean and he was getting bombed out the club just at the same time that Benitez was about to get the sack himself. So what did they pay? Was it, off the top of my head, was it about 18 million or something? It was a lot of money. I thought
it was in the 20s.
It was a lot of money. So, they paid big money for Mykolenko. And it's weird because it's waxed and wanes at times. Ironically, when it was Frank Lampard there, and obviously he scored that great goal down at Leicester, but he generally struggled there at a time when he had Ashley Young, the best Premier League left back in history, arguably, as his coach, and he couldn't get a tune out of him. And then it was actually under Sean Dyche. To be fair, he came on leaps and bounds the season before the one we've just had now. But then obviously you've seen him sort of relapsing into bad habits at times, and I was down at Southampton for, I think that was one of his lowest moments there, and he went absolutely AWOL, out of position, and it's not the first time. I think it's happened since as well. I don't remember which games it was where it's happened again, and but yeah, he keeps coming back, doesn't he? And he's just when you think, oh, he's becoming a liability or whatever, he sort of knuckles down and gives you a few steady performances. Yeah, I think he certainly needs challenging, doesn't he? Yet again, like you say, the only recognised left back in the club. You've got to get somebody in there. See who you can get. Is
that one of the biggest things? And it certainly probably is one of the biggest things for me, that he's just had no competition. Let's face it, if you're going to be in the team every single week, you kind of do rest on your laurels a little bit. I don't care what anyone says. It was kind of, there's a lot of love actually for Mykolenko in the comments, so I'll read some of them out now, but it kind of was at a time. I know Moyes has come in and things changed and things improved, so naturally that's what's going to happen to individual performances. But it kind of, when Young was the option as the left back, Mykolenko seemed to, get a rocket up his bum and was like, yes, like, do you know what I mean? He seems to improve a lot there in that respect.
Yeah, it's definitely in any position, isn't it? If you've got somebody competing for your share, you are going to have to raise your game. And like say, he's not had that. Who's the one that they brought in when it was Ruben Vinagre? He didn't do anything, did he, at all? He hardly got a look in, so he obviously wasn't impressing. So yeah, he's basically had the shirt for himself for several years. So yeah, he probably does need that. I'd be interested to see what Vitaly Mikalenko's thoughts are, because he's one who, obviously, like I say, he's been here for 3.5 years now. We never had him offered up for a post-match interview. Curiously, I don't know how good his English is now. Don't know if he's learned English as quick as Trent's learned Spanish. But Mikalenko, and I know he does speak English, but he's just curious. He's never. We have our old favourites. James Tarkowski always comes out and speaks, and we've done Jordan Pickford a few times, but never Mikalenko. So I'd like to know what his thoughts were. But yeah, he does needs that competition. You've got, as a Premier League team, you should have 2 decent options in every position, really, shouldn't you? And Everton haven't had that left back for a long time now.
Mark Foster says Mikalenko loves the one-on-one duels. I mean, that's where his strengths lie, isn't it? Let's face it. Defensively, he's been fantastic. I guess he's improved going forward over the past couple of months, but in the past, that's where he's kind of struggled. And whether that was because of instructions from the previous manager, don't cross the halfway line, don't get too far forward, it did seem to be the case that was the instructions to him. Danny Church says, I thought Mikalenko had a good second half to the season. Dyche ruined him and kept telling him to don't cross the halfway line. Kind of what I said. Shelley Toffee Blue says Mikalenko improved massively. And Terry Dactyl says Miko did improve under Moyes and Dyche was killing him. Can you just put it down to the previous manager, or is there?
Yeah, but you got to say, to be fair, I know I keep going, I remember when Joe and I were on a train recently, and some Evertonians were saying, which one of you was it who loved Dyche? And it was obviously referring to me. But I certainly wasn't giving Dyche any defence in this season just gone, when things obviously turned, things were bad then. But you got to be fair to, it was actually under Lampard that Mikalenko was really struggling, and it was 23-24 season, to be fair, under Dyche, when he did actually improve a lot. So to say that he killed him, I think that's harsh. Obviously, his fortunes fluctuated, didn't they? They went up and down, but as you've mentioned, it's actually been in games, hasn't it, where he's been up against a star man, whether it be a Salah, who we've just mentioned, or Bukayo Saka at Arsenal. Yeah. Those sort of players, when he sort of had to just have his defensive head on, that he's actually produced some of his best performances. But to be fair, he can cross a ball. He can whip across him when he gets up there. And
he got the cross / punt in for the Tarkowski goal, didn't he?
There you go. So yeah, he's had a few like that, hasn't he? And played his part, was it, in Dyer's goal on the final game at Goodison. So yeah, he's got that in his locker. He can combine the defensive and more sort of forward thinking. I mean, that has to be the way going forward. I mean, you were seeing all those years ago under Moyes' first time round, the way Leighton Baines played at left back, he's certainly nowhere near those levels. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's up to Moyes, isn't it? No pressure. Just find another Leighton Baines from somewhere. Well,
it's interesting that you bring up Leighton Baines, because John Ryan in the comments said, "Is Bainesy helping Mikalenko as well?" Which you've got to say is a distinct possibility.
Yeah, I imagine he will be, won't he? It was one of David Moyes' first acts, really, wasn't it, to promote Leighton Baines from the under-18s to the first team. And when he was talking at the end of this season about he might be having a few tweaks in the backroom staff this summer, and he was asked about Baines, and he was very adamant. Leighton Baines will be staying on; he's going to be there. So yeah, where Ashley Cole failed, hopefully Leighton Baines can succeed, because you've probably got. If I'm saying like Cole's number one Premier League left back all time, Baines probably isn't far behind him in the pecking order. So yeah, hopefully he can work and help Mikalenko develop. But like you say, he probably does need to have that competition for places.
Gavin Cunningham in the comments says, Gav, as in probably Gavin Buckland, loved Dyche and also thought Dominic Calvert-Lewin was better than Beto and suited the way we played. And Kevin Crafter says, well, he's added you at Chris Beesley. Did you like Dyche, lad? Tell me you're joking.
I think it's a bit harsh on Gav, to be fair. Saying Gav has always been quite critical of Calvert-Lewin, to be fair. So I'm not too sure about where They're going with that one.
Well, we'll have to ask him next time he's on the pod. He's not going to be on the pod until a week today. He's still off gallivanting around somewhere.
Okay.
Just finally on Mykolenko, I guess what is massive for club and player is contract's up, isn't it? At the end of next season. Yeah. So it is, regardless for him on a personal point of view, it's a big season because he's going to have to play well enough to either earn a new contract at Everton or earn a new contract at another club. So I guess in a way you would like to think that would benefit Everton on the pitch.
Yeah, it's a big year coming up for him. It's make or break, really, and it's a lot of. I think hopefully it will favour the club in that, if he does well then and offer him a new deal, or if he doesn't kick on, you look elsewhere.
Well, this to-do list for David Moyes in his recruitment process is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about defence, we haven't actually talked about, let's talk about centre-backs before we quickly move on to strikers. So you briefly touched on it. We've got 3 who are going to be there by the end of June as things stand.
Yeah.
And 2 are injured. So it's a tough one, isn't it? I guess we've discussed this at length, on previous podcasts. The easy solution, and I say easy because, well, it just is. If you're offered Michael Keane a new contract and he stayed, at least then you've got someone who's a wealth of Premier League experience. He could do in a job to an extent, but it would be on the basis that he would be 4th choice. If you let him go, it's a gamble in the sense that you're going to have to either spend a lot of money on someone who's going to have to be 4th choice or work his way in.
Yeah.
So again, it probably goes back to the second string goalkeeper situation. If Keane was to go, let's do it on the basis that Keane is to leave. Do you bring in someone who's young, youthful, and lack of experience, but he can work his way into the team, or do you bring in someone who's experienced and is happy to kind of be just the 4th choice centre back?
I think in the Keane situation, if he goes, it's not like the goalkeeper you're never going to play. Especially with these injuries, you might end up playing quite a bit. I'd go for a young, hungry player, a prospect who can hopefully develop. I think that's the way to go. But
then how much are you going to spend on that?
Yeah,
player?
Well, that's the thing. It could be anywhere around 20 million, couldn't it, or something like that, depending on who you get, and that's probably one of the reasons why it would make sense to retain Michael Keane. But then I think it's the ball's in the player's court. Is he happy continuing as 4th choice, or does he want to go elsewhere for regular minutes? Because I imagine it's going to be on reduced wages as well, something Abdoulaye Doucouré's already turned down. So, yeah, I'd go for somebody you could look to develop, because as much as he's hopefully got quite a few years left in him. Tarkowski, what is he, 32 now as well, something like that. Yeah, I'd be looking for a younger player if Keane went, somebody you could learn from the existing centre-backs and hopefully pushing, because they might get to play a few games. Like I said, it's totally different than the keeper situation. I mean, you might end up, getting double figures in terms of the games you play in all comps, depending, how things pan out.
Dave Mack has jumped to the defence of Gav Buckland and says, Gav has always said Dominic Calvert-Lewin was not good enough. I know, because I agree with him. Mm-hmm. I think, to be honest, again, in defence of Gav, he has always been critical of Calvert-Lewin and his numbers in terms of in front of goal, because he's always stated that Calvert-Lewin scores in spurts. He'll go 15, 20 games without a goal, but then he will score like 4 or 5 goals within a couple of games. But that's still not good enough, is it? Just back to the centre back situation. Mark Foster says the pool of 4th choice centre backs will be low on quality, which he's absolutely spot on. It's a difficult one to judge, especially if Michael Keane does leave. And I understand the calls for Keane to leave, but we don't want to leave ourselves with too much to do in this transfer window. Yeah. And it just goes back to the situation with the second string goalkeeper. Ideally, you would have liked to have retained at least one of those, wouldn't you? Because we're going to have to try and sign 2 now. And if you don't sign 2, you sign on 1 and bring in a youth player into the team. Yeah.
Like I said, it's like unnecessary headaches when there's so much else to do.
So at least another centre-back then on the to-do list for David Moyes. Yeah. Strikers one's always going to be interesting. Obviously, talking about strikers, we're going to be talking about Calvert-Lewin and his situation, but I guess we'll leave it on the basis that Calvert-Lewin is going to leave by the end of June, and it'll leave Everton with basically 2 fit well, whether they're fit or not at the time, but 2 strikers.
And one of them's Chimity, who I don't consider first team.
You wouldn't consider him first team. Well, he's barely featured, has he?
Yeah.
I don't think he's played in a game that Everton have won.
Really?
I think I saw that.
Okay.
Well, he came on coming against West Ham. Or Ipswich.
Yeah.
It was Ipswich that we drew.
Now you're blaming everything on you, on Chimity now. He's the Jonah.
Yeah. So Beto and Chimity, they're the 2 at least anyway. And you said you wouldn't even consider him as a striker. So,
well, not first team level. Yeah, I think he's one. I think ideally he would have probably gone out on loan this season, but he had so many problems with injuries that never happened for him. I understand there could be a bit of interest for him going out on loan for next season. So so you're basically talking about Beto, aren't you, in terms of as a first team player? So definitely, I mean, they've already made their move for Liam Delap. He chose Chelsea. Moyes, I'm sure, is in the market for a striker of some sort.
Is it just the one, though? Do we need 2? I mean, what would your mindset be in terms of the striker situation? Get at least one in, and then parlour the team with wingers who would be a threat up top, or do you think we need at least 2 strikers in?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can go for the 2 out-and-out strikers. You might have people like, you've seen with Tim Cahill in the past, or Stephen Naismith. They're not just your number 9 and playing over attacking midfield areas or on the wings or whatever. Maybe it'd be a case of that. Maybe you'd have your one out-and-out centre-forward and then another attacking player. Because also, traditionally, they're the most expensive players as well, aren't you? And it's been, I won't say done to death, but obviously it's a point we've mentioned quite rightly so a lot on the podcast. So many teams in the Premier League are in the lookout for strikers this summer. Everyone seems to want them, and given that for a long time now, most teams only play with the one. There's less of them about. It's not like if I dare include you in this. When we were lads and it was everyone played 4-4-2. There's a lot fewer strikers seemingly out there, and it's going to cost a lot of money in it to bring in a 2. And also, what do you say to the other one? You say, again, we'll use you as and when. So, and this is even if Beto stays, because obviously he's been interested in Beto as well. So, I'd probably have the mind to bring in one striker who if he's an orthodox striker, and then some sort of other attacking player, like I said, that I always used the likes of your Naismiths, Cahills in the past, of somebody like in that sort of ilk. Even McFadden, when he was another one.
Eltel on the banks of the Royal Blue Mersey says, grab Ferguson from Brighton and Moyes to fix him. That's Evan Ferguson, isn't it? Who went to West Ham on loan.
It's an interesting one. Just done an article about that. Yeah, just going up just now. It might have gone up or is about to go up. Explaining that one. He's a player Everton did look at January, and when I was last speaking to them, the people at Everton were concerned of how things had gone at West Ham United. Obviously, like you say, hardly got a look. Well, he didn't hardly get a look. He didn't do anything there. He didn't score a goal in 8 games. It was at the end of the season, not even in the side. So. He certainly needs fixing in that respect. It's a curious one, the way he's gone, because he was a real wonder kid, wasn't he, at one point, a real hot property. I mean, Liverpool just signed another player for over 100 million. They were even talking about mega money, sort of numbers like that with him not too long ago, and he's gone off the rails. He's a player Everton have looked at in the past, but I know that they're concerned with how things have gone for him. But given, like you say, the need for numbers, and it's a fluid situation, things could change.
Magical Fluid Process says, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a good player, but does not have the killer instinct for goal. I hope we replace him. I mean, let's face it, he's on the verge of... He's set to leave.
It's more a case of him, it would seem, if he doesn't want to sign a contract, he's not being replaced. He's taking the decision himself, isn't he? It would seem. But yeah, I understand that about the lack of killer instincts, as much as he's got some other great attributes and... incredible, as good as any striker in the Premier League in the air on his day. I think that's been one of the things, the fact that he wasn't a striker from a young age, he's probably sometimes let him down, like you say, that as the contributor says, that the lack of the killer instinct or having that sort of natural sort of poacher's finishes at times.
Again, two opposite opinions in the comments here. So Gavin Cunningham says Ferguson is just another unlucky injury-prone striker. However, Liam EFC says Ferguson is garbage, and Brighton rated him at £100 million a few years ago.
I just said, yeah. It's something's badly gone wrong for Evan Ferguson. I don't know what it is. I mean, it doesn't seem to be an attitude problem. I know he had a few injuries last season, but yeah, to be the exciting prospect that he was, everyone thought it was going to be the next big thing. To really struggling, whatever it's Everton or somebody else, somebody needs to fix him, because it's a shame really. I think he's only 20 years of age to have sort of gone off the rails so badly from a form point of view.
Here's a left field one, which is immediately started extra comments in the comments section saying no. Gaspipe says Vardy is the perfect backup for Beto. He's cheap too.
Wow. He is somebody who does know how to finish,
and he's cheap because he's free.
Well, I don't know.
He got relegated with Leicester. Probably the ship has sailed on that one, hasn't it?
Would the Vardys be welcoming open arms in this city? Whoa. I don't know.
I mean, he would if he'd scored goals, but maybe.
I think I'd maybe take a punt on James and Vardy a decade ago. Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't have been a punt a decade ago, would it? It would have been nailed on. So yeah, I guess we'll move on now. But that is basically the recruitment to-do list that we've just kind of gone in. It's let's face it, it's a squad that has been decimated and it needs filling. Don't get me wrong, we can't just fill it with low quality players.
Moyes wouldn't do that, would he? Yeah.
But in all honesty though, Chris, you're not going to get. He's not going to get this done in the first transfer window, or the first big transfer window that he's had. So hopefully you're expecting, a couple of quality additions. But would you expect a couple also players squad players to an effect who were kind of filling out the squad as well? Hopefully on low length contracts.
I think if he's going to do that, maybe he'd be looking at the way he's done in the past. Look at players who are up and coming from the Championship, perhaps. Ones who aren't going to break the bank necessarily at the moment, but players who you can develop and you can get better. He's obviously done that many times with Tim Cahill, Julian Lescott at Everton, even Jarrad Bowen at West Ham United. They've all proven to be, top Premier League quality eventually. It's maybe harder now. You don't quite have those bargains that you did a couple of decades ago when Moyes was first starting. But that's the sort of way I'd want to be looking at again these younger players who are going to get better. And I don't see David Moyes filling the squad. I mean, there might be one or two here and there. He'd go for the experience, but he's not going to be. He's never done that. He's sort of gone for the players who are looking for the easy life. You're not going to get that under David Moyes. He doesn't want that. So, yeah, the problem they've got is, they've just finished 13th, and although they had a really decent sort of finish to the season, they're not one of the teams who are, in Europe this year and at the sort of the higher end in the transfer window. So you've got to be creative. You've got to be clever with your recruitment rather than signing those established stars, because maybe, like you say, it's not going to be done in one window. It'll be, hopefully, you improve next season, and then in 12 months' time, you say, oh, look at Everton, they're moving in the right direction again. So that's another issue. As much as we're all excited about the new stadium, it's a new dawn, people are going to be looking at it saying, just where you are, Everton. So you've got to be quite clever and canny in that respect. Okay,
moving on to a different topic. You've done a piece on this, but Alan Stubbs, former Everton player, been speaking about Jarrad Branthwaite. Stubbs has basically urged Branthwaite to stay at Everton. Just a little quote from the piece that you wrote. He says, "It's the right thing for me for Jarrad to stay put. As an Everton fan, I want to see Everton build a team around Jarrad Branthwaite and Jordan Pickford because I think they're the future of the football club, especially Jarrad in terms of his age." I mean, you wouldn't expect anything else from Alan Stubbs, do you know what I mean? It's not like he's going to come out and say, well, I think Jarrad should leave. But I guess it's nice to see, comments like that in the media from former players' age and, a player like Jarrad Branthwaite to stay.
I think that he would. I'm not saying put my Everton hat on there. I think that's his best options, at least for another year. Stay Everton. He said himself, the excitement of playing in the new stadium. I think that's the best option for him. I mean, Alan Stubbs, similar sentiments to David Moyes, as we mentioned, wanting to build a team around him, including Tarkowski in that as well. And to be fair, Alan speaks well. And if people read that article, she talks about the ways how he thinks Branthwaite can develop, and as a former centre half himself and Everton captain, the ways he thinks he can improve going forward. I mean, Joe did a piece, Joe Thomas, a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how there is interest for Jarrad Branthwaite again this summer. At the moment, it seems to be from Tottenham Hotspur, but I know obviously it's a new start for them on the Thomas Frank, but they were an absolute basket case last season. Lost 10 more games in Everton. Obviously they've got the backdoor entry into the Champions League through winning the Europa League final. Them and Man United, the football equivalent of two bald men fighting over a comb, that game. But they got themselves into the Champions League in the back door, so they do offer that. But yeah, I don't think Jarrad Branthwaite is better than himself. He was to go to Tottenham the same way as if he'd gone to Manchester United and all the mess that was there last summer if he'd gone there. So I genuinely think, I'm not just saying this, like I said, with my Everton hat on, but I think the best option for Jarrad Branthwaite is to stick exactly where he is and to learn under David Moyes, who's another great reputation for developing centre backs who have come under and played under him. And thinking about, again, we've mentioned Lescott already, Phil Jagielka, players like that who've become England regulars under David Moyes first time around at Everton. Yeah, it's just see how it goes in this next season. It could, if the manager's willing to build a team around you, it's quite an accolade, isn't it, for a young player like that?
Without a doubt. I mean, in the article as well, Stubbs continued with his praise for Jarrad. He said, I think Jarrad is exceeding where he should be right now in terms of his age. Centre-halves, as we all know, get better with age. Mm-hmm. But I think he's got fantastic attributes in terms of what you look for in your modern-day centre-back. He's quick, he's dominant in the air, but I think he can become even more dominant. His 1v1 defending is good and will get better. I mean, fantastic praise from, a fantastic centre-half himself, Alan Stubbs, for Jarrad Branthwaite. But, I mean, there's been a lot of debate recently about, I think you said it in the past, Jarrad Branthwaite is a generational talent. That's obviously your opinion. Can he get better? Can he get even better than what he's doing now? And where would you assess him in terms of the best defenders in the Premier League at this moment in time?
I certainly think he's above quite a few of those who've been getting big for England there.
It's a good shout.
Yeah. Obviously, he was injured, so at the end of the season, obviously he wasn't picked in Tuchel's first squad, but then he was injured for the subsequent one. But in terms of improvement, I think Alan mentions himself. He thinks obviously as a lot of it just comes with age as a young player. It's Tarkowski, although he's learnt so much from playing alongside Tarkowski. Tarkowski is like the dominant figure. He's the vocal one. And Alan has said it will come with age, becoming a more vocal presence. I mean, Jarrad tends to lead by example, but going forward, he becomes a bigger voice within the team because he's a very assured young man and he seems to a lot of football intelligence about him. I'd like to see more of I think he's got it in his lock, and we've seen it already. When he carries the ball forward and he can actually start attacks from deep, he can pick a pass and play a ball forward. He's got that, but I just like the way also it's happened so many times when he sort of devours an opposition striker because he's such a imposing physical specimen. I remember it's actually another one who bizarrely got linked to Everton this week, Mikel Antonio. When we were down at West Ham season before last, and there was one where Branthwaite just came across and just gobbled him up as it were. And I think even as Chris Wood in one game at Forest, he sort of was a huge man himself. He sort of got the better of him in a physical battle. So yeah, he combines that. He's got that strength, and he's got that power about him, but also his football intelligence, which is already at a high level, can hopefully just get better and better as he goes on in terms of reading the game, which is obviously so important for centre-backs.
The Blues have said...
All of them.
Well, the Blues YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Where's it gone now? He's class, but a generational talent is way over the top. Now, I know you've referred to him as a generational talent.
I think Joe has as well, to be fair, yeah.
So well, obviously you wouldn't agree with it. Is it over the top that he's a generational talent? Or
I think Marcel Brands, the man who brought him to Everton, would think so. I think in terms of what I say, it's potential, isn't it? He's not at that level right now, but it's what you think he can become, and I certainly think he's got that as in his lockers as a potential from a centre back point of view.
John Ryan says, I think Jarrad will be more vocal next season and has potential to be a future Everton captain.
Yeah, if he stays, hopefully.
Okay, what's your gut feeling? Do you think you're going to be an Everton player start of the season?
Did you? I think you asked me this 12 months ago. I say yeah. But it's not. It's again. It's going to be. Maybe their resolve will be tested at some point. But yeah, I'd like to hope so.
Well, we've said that there wasn't much going on in terms of news, but we have nearly done an hour, so we will finish off now. But I just wanted to say that obviously you mentioned David Moyes was awarded the OBE this week. You mentioned that earlier in the pod, and he was obviously interviewed by Sky Sports, and he, his expectation was he bigged it up even more. He was basically saying, I want Everton to be back in Europe. He obviously said he couldn't guarantee that, but refreshing to see that a manager of Everton is saying these things. I guess it's too early. I think we had a conversation about it yesterday, didn't we? It's too early to give a verdict on where you think Everton are going to be next season, because there's so much work that needs to go in. But it's nice, isn't it, to where Moyes and Everton managers suggest that we should be, fighting for European places.
Yeah, he's kind of been looking up from the start, hasn't he? Even when he first came in, because obviously I think it was one of the quotes when he got his OBE on New Year's Eve, when he was out of work at the time, I was saying how he wouldn't go into a club who was in a relegation battle, and then obviously he joined Everton, who were a point above the drop zone. But even from day one, when he came back to Goodison Park, he was saying, I don't want to be in and around this area. I want to be pushing up the table. And now he's taking that on and saying, mentioning Europe. It's another thing, shows you how Moyes has evolved and he's changed first time round, because a lot of the time, as well as he did first time round, people would often accuse him of sort of trying to lower expectations or sort of talking more reserved, whereas now he's more comfortable in his skin and he's got all the experiences that he's had. He's like, I do want to be looking forward, want to be looking onwards and upwards, and that's certainly got to be the aspiration for him. It's going to be tough, like I said, that first season, but the Everton excuses are going to be running out. We all know why they haven't been competitive for a generation now, and it's the whole Goodison Park factor. Whether Moyes was there first time round and did really well, 9 top 8 finishes, but they've not been able to compete with the big boys, as it were, from a financial point of view. Once the new stadium kicks in, those sort of excuses are going to disappear. So it's great to see David Moyes embracing that and being positive.
Okay, final thoughts then. Fixtures next week.
Yeah,
looking forward to that.
Yeah, looking forward to be able to sort of plan the rest of our year, and I'm sure we're all just wondering who that first Premier League opponent at Hill Dickinson Stadium will be. I'm just looking forward, obviously, to being there on the anticipation. I mean, any start of any given season, there's always got that first day anticipation, but an absolute, I'd say once in a lifetime, but it's more than that. Once in every, been at Goodison Park for 133 years, to be that first game, that roar. I was just looking back through the videos on my phone, and Joe and I were at the first test event, the under-18s, the Wigan game, and just listening to Zed Cars. And because it's a new stadium and because the PA is presumably a lot better than it is at Goodison, even Z-Car sounded better. It sounded clearer. It sounded louder. Crisper. Yeah. So to have that, and then there were obviously only the 10,000 allowed that night, but to have that and combine that with the 52,000 Evertonians in the stadium and the anticipation of the first day, that'd be something special. So it'd be great to see who they end up being that first home game when the fixtures come out next Wednesday. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we're going to be back Monday with the pod, but just for reference, me, Chris, and Tony Scott are going to do a pod following the release of the fixtures. So I think we're going to look at doing that around 12 o'clock on the 18th of June. Okay. So keep an eye out for that live one. That live show, and obviously we'll be hosting that to all the audio platforms following on from that. Any articles that we should be looking out for the rest of the day on the Liverpool Echo website, Chris?
I said there, that Evan Ferguson one, I don't know, it may well have gone up while we've been talking now, and then obviously we're talking about all David Moyes and his OBE and what that might mean going forward in terms of Everton and the new stadium, because that OBE might stand for something else in Blue's eyes.
Okay, well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week, or enjoy your weekend. We'll be back on Monday. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Chris Beesley, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.